o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again. All right. So, of course, on the show this morning, we got the Richards twins. We got Paul Richards. We got Richard Rogabara. We have another R in the mix. We got Ruben. And, of course, my name is Steve Kahn. We'll keep you company until 9 o'clock this morning. That's when Sir Charles pops in. All right. Quickly, let's take a look at the WT, see what's happening. Starting out in the east by Arima Old Road. Coming out of Arima Old Road, you've got some traffic on the Eastern Main Road. Not really, just the usual spots like Tacarigua, Mokoya. Charlieville towards the interchange. You got some volume there as well as the south. See what's going on there. Nothing to tell you there at all. Yeah, traffic is a bit light this morning. Of course, getting into Port of Spain from the interchange to El Socorro, slow going. A bit of volume and then into Port of Spain. Building up in the west by Maraval and Mocha for those coming out of Santa Cruz. That's what you've got. All right. Quickly take a look at our temps. Yep, it is 26 degrees at Piarco International Airport. It's 27 at Crown Point in Tobago. What's the Met Office? I didn't check to see if they updated it, but let's check to see if they did. And they did. They said it's going to be partly cloudy with scattered light to moderate showers. There's a low to medium. They're saying 30 to 60% chance that a few of these showers will become heavy and thundery, but not confined to southern areas of Trinidad. Fair conditions are expected by late afternoon despite the lingering shower and the 20%, which is low chance of an isolated thunderstorm. All right. We got some Sahara dust in the air. And as I do that, let me check some temps around where our listenership are. Let's see. Toronto, you're at 12 and sunny. That's like summer. Miami at 27. Orlando 24. New York 16 and sunny. Atlanta 19, cloudy. London 24 and partly cloudy. Wow, it's warm. Tampa, you're also at 24. Washington, you're at 15. All right, let's see who sent us hellos via our mobile app and our website, and I'll check to see who sent us hellos on YouTube in a short. First off the gate this morning, we got Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida. First off the gate, that is, at midnight, followed by Trev in Arima, Wendy Ann, let's see, Maria Marva, Garth Celia out in Valencia, all came in within the midnight hour. Rena Boodoo Jennings, good morning. DJ Ray out in Delaware. D. Pierre, Ms. Maloney, Dudu Wagwan. Oliver Man Warren, good morning. Ms. Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona. Charmaine from Arima. Morning, Charmaine. Carol Guevara. Carol here. Carol again. Good morning. Edwin Marshall. A pleasant good morning, gentlemen. Continue to stay safe. Thank you so much. Ray, you don't sleep. Midnight, and then you just came in again. Somebody's going to be sleeping on the job today. So good morning to you, Ray. Sabita, good morning to you. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Be safe. And Dancing Queen, good morning. All have a wonderful day. Dancing Queen. Oh, I should play that song today. You know, that's like one of my favorites. Dancing Queen. America's Got Talent and Voice. Watch out. Watch out. We should do that in polls. Should I go up for America's Got Talent or The Voice? Yes or no? Should I? I'll think about that. Morning, Pablo. You have to unmute.
It's already raining, so we have nothing to lose if you sing.
You have nothing to what?
Lose. It's already the rainy season, so it's going to rain anyway, so you might as well sing.
You see, the cards are all lining up for me. It's all lining up.
You might as well sing if you want.
I know. I'll pull up the karaoke to it and sing along. What do you think? I can make that my Kiss Power choice. I think I can do that.
There may be consequences to that. YouTube may ban it forever.
I'll do it after we come off of YouTube. How was that?
You
What?
shoot me bonus. Yeah, you do it after you come off your team.
And I'll line for me
Why
there,
not do it after you come off the air?
but my millions of fans won't hear me.
Well, that's the point. We're trying to save them.
No, they want to hear me. I'm sure if I do a
I don't know
Facebook
if they want to hear you.
Millions views. Anyway, morning to you, Pablo. What's happening? What's happening?
Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
We started a long weekend.
Oh, yeah. Let me get up and do a dance. Hold on. Oh, yeah. All right, I did my dance. Maybe I can incorporate my dance.
That was unpleasant.
Dancing queen.
That was unpleasant.
I just thought the planets are aligned for me for that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a long weekend. Monday is Labor Day in Trinidad and Tobago. So, yeah, we won't be here on Monday. Woo, we get to sleep in late. I couldn't get up this morning, boy. I was in a deep sleep. I didn't get home till after 11. Yeah. From when I left home yesterday morning, I didn't get home till after 11.
Wow.
I was just knocked. Yeah. My dad is doing surgery now, so.
Oh, I hope he's all right.
Yeah, he's doing heart surgery.
No?
Later on today.
I pray that he has a successful surgery and recovery.
So, I don't know, boy. It's just his mom did it a month ago. Now, dad.
It's because their hearts are melted as one.
Okay, we'll go with that.
If you fix one heart, you have to fix the other heart.
There you go.
The hearts are as one.
And I was.
Are they married over 50 years?
This January 22nd, they'll be married for 58 years.
Wow. That is amazing.
58. And they're still going strong, apart from the little issue. I mean, mom is back to normal now. I mean, she really can't push herself too much, but she's back to normal.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
58 years. Wow. That is really amazing.
58.
Good for them.
No. And just my brother and myself. My brother is 3 years younger than me. But yeah.
That is what you call marriage, successful marriage. Well, except for creating you. But, you can't blame them for that. They have to take what they get sometimes.
Don't make me pull up my shirt and you see my doubles belly there for you,
Please don't. Please don't.
Make me do that,
Please, Steve. Please don't. Please, I beg of you, please. Please don't.
He still doesn't like that, eh? Just because he doesn't like it, I'll do it. You know me, I wicked already.
I beg of you. Please don't pull up your shit. Don't subject us to that.
I can do that.
I don't think we deserve that.
Let me see if I could pull it up here. I know here it is. Just a little PSA for those that use the Inter-Island Ferry service. I'm just giving them a free plug. Please be advised that the MV Cabo Star has successfully completed its repairs and will resume operations on the Inter-Island service come this Saturday, 17th June, from Port of Spain, 1 p.m. And it arrives at 10 p.m. It takes 9 hours to get across on the Cabo Star. Seriously?
Wow. You could go to New York, right? You could go to London.
Yeah, it's like flying to London. Seriously, it is. And then it leaves Tobago on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. It gets in here at 11 p.m. Holy moly. But there'll be no sailing on Labor Day, the public holiday. There'll be...
I worked at the Hyatt on Saturday and Sunday, and I saw that boat docked on the waterfront. It's an ugly old boat.
Isn't it ugly?
It's an ugly old boat. That's what it is, an ugly old boat.
It needs a paint job.
It's an ugly old boat.
Yeah. That's on a lease, right?
It wasn't bought new anyway.
We bought it, or is it leased?
Or leased. It's leased. Yeah, you're right. It's leased.
It's leased.
It's an ugly old leased boat. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, they should start looking for a newer boat, though, if it's leased.
Yeah, quite unfortunate.
There you go, Vilma. Good morning to you, my darling Vilma, out of the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to you.
See, you're going to get free tickets just now.
No, I don't get free tickets. I don't.
Anyway, good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. What the hell is going on in Jamaica?
Let me tell you. A lot of the resorts are not preparing for their breakfast. The jerk chicken is being seasoned. Beaches are being combed and straight grated
And
with
second Cape papers are being stolen.
I heard that. Well, I didn't hear anything yesterday. No news at all. I heard you say that in our news. It was
9
stolen.
papers for 9 subjects. 9, not 1 or 2. 9 for CSEC and Cape examinations have been stolen. So they're going to have these students do exams without any idea of who has had sight of these papers beforehand.
They don't understand the kind of anxiety
No,
these
but
kids are
how? They said fireproof cabinets containing the examination papers for 9 subjects scheduled to be administered this week. So what? Or you have a vault, you do have security.
Or just put the papers in the cupboard there, all right? Yeah, no problem there.
Put it in the cabinet.
No, the cupboard. Or put it next
to
it.
Make it make sense.
As
make
Richard
it make sense. How? Make it make sense.
Richard would say, put it in the monstrosity.
Make it make sense now. Please make it make sense, please.
I don't know. I heard that in the news and my eyes went, what? Is he doing?
No, I agree with carrying on the exams, but how about make it make sense? It doesn't make no sense to me.
Yeah, it's the probably pull the curtain for the monstrosity and take it.
Make it make sense, please. Please make it make sense. So the students will write exams today without any idea of who what's the word? Who may or may not have had sight of the papers before, putting them at an extreme advantage.
Yeah.
So you may have been making 30 and 40 during the semester. Oh, all of a sudden you make 80. Can I accuse them of anything? You have no proof. But how? How CXC? Tell me how. CXC, how did it happen? Really?
Yeah.
I thought CXC was based, well, I guess they're based in Barbados, but they would have had to disseminate the papers to the various countries' writings examinations. So they send it to Jamaica as they would have sent it to Trinidad and Tobago and every other jurisdiction. And Jamaica clearly has some issues with security at their education ministry.
You think?
So somebody move out with the papers. You understand?
CCJK says make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
Yeah, make it. Thank you, CCJK. Make it make sense. I heard that with you and I was like, what the heck?
Now, let's play this for you.
What is that? What is that? Hope there's no porn.
Wait a second.
Okay, for what you hit in there, Paul, make sure you hit the right one.
All of that I have to consider before making the statements I will make. So, and that's why I will set my agenda in terms of when I speak, because I have to count those steps carefully, because at the end of the day, there is a state to be protected. And I will not always be chief secretary, but I want to ensure that there will always be an institution called the Tobago House of Assembly that can continue to thrive. And I have seen in this space, and yes, I perhaps wasn't like this a year ago, fresh out of the election. Trust me, they get knocked left, right, and center a long time. But I have seen in this space, for example, I have seen politicians in this space stand up and say some things, and I say, wow, they're right to say it. The information is correct, but it's very detrimental to the state and the security of state as a whole. I have to measure my steps carefully, and I will measure my steps carefully and make my statements quite definitively. When I make those statements, everyone won't be happy. And when I make those statements, it may bring some houses down on some people. But I will say what needs to be said at the right time. I have to measure whether or not it's in the larger public good to say. All of that I have to consider before.
So that's Fali Augustine.
Blah, 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 blah.
Fairfield complex. Making
3 weeks after you know, come out and say something. You sure that's Fali?
On the well, unless it's AI, because there's video associated with it.
Could be AI.
Making its first public statements associated with the controversial audio tape, which is alleged to be or purported to be him and Zorisha Hackett, the person for Education Research Technology, the Secretary for Education Research and Technology in the Assembly. Weeks after, of course, even in that, with a public statement, he did not say, well, it's not me. He did not say, you all didn't hear the whole thing. Maybe before, you all would have heard me saying, this is what people are asking me to do, but I'm not willing to do that. You understand? But he said it's a matter of security, and he will speak when he wants to speak, not when the media wants him to speak. Well, it's not really the media want you to speak, it's the people of Tobago and Trinidad want you to speak and say if it is you and the context in which you were saying these things. The media is just waiting to report it, sir. And when he speaks, people would not like it, and it may bring houses down in some people. Just some political really.
You think his house will fall down?
I don't know. I can't say that. Maybe what he has to say may be implicating others and exonerating himself.
3 weeks
we
after.
Don't know.
3 weeks after,
Yeah.
That says a lot to me.
Well, doesn't say very much to me, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, it took 3 weeks.
Understand?
How long is that recording? A minute? Wow.
Yeah, songs a little obfuscatory for me, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't talk. Remember, I have information, but not tonight. like he's taking a page out of Jack Wallace's book, but not tonight. But when I speak, but not tonight. So he said he will speak when he's ready. That is Mr. Fali Augustine.
You have information, but I'm not going to really see. Not tonight, people. Not tonight.
Yeah, so he's opted for not today. Meantime, I mean, scathing rebuke from so many quarters. Scathing rebuke from people in Tobago. People respect it, like Mr. Dumas, who's intonated that given the recordings, he should step down, resign. Dr. Vanessa James, who I would say mentored and advised him and the members of the PDP, and subsequently, I guess.
And when we spoke to him a couple of last couple of times,
his word, and he's only interested
as well.
Martin George, head of the Tobago Business Chamber and well-known attorney. Of course, you expect the normal political Calvin Morris from the PNM. But the others who they are not aligned to any political party, they always seem to have the interests of Tobago at heart, and they have all said Mr. Augustine and his team need to step down. Of course, Watson Duke is chiming in, but and Watson Duke also said that Mr. Augustine and his administration should resign. He issued another missive yesterday, long one.
I swear I did read it.
So. I don't know how we recover from this politically. It's not going to go away anytime soon. It's just not. Playing the security issues card is an interesting move. He says he wants to maintain the integrity of the assembly. Well, the audio recording doesn't seem to indicate that whoever is identified as the person speaking are interested in integrity in the running of the assembly, given what we have heard, without any other explanation. Maybe there's an explanation that may validate his most recent claims of security issues. As I said, maybe the parts we didn't hear before or parts we didn't hear after may indicate that he and his team had been investigating persons who were planning to do that, but it didn't seem like that. And without a further explanation, we can only respond to what we've heard. And now this latest contribution from Mr. Augustine, the first reference to the controversial audio tapes since 3 weeks ago, since they were leaked 3 weeks ago, saying that he will not speak much now. He has to protect the interest of the THA and make sure there's a THA long after he's gone. I may proffer, Mr. Augustine, that the THA has been there long before you came along. It will be there long after you or many others may not be there, as has been the case with every chief secretary before your good self, and maybe the case with chief secretaries after your good self and your team. So, and it is not the first time persons in the assembly have been brought into controversy or brought themselves into controversy if indeed the audio tape is proven to be you, and the assembly will survive. As a matter of fact, a further explanation is what is needed to protect the integrity of the assembly. And also, we've had news now that the Integrity Commission and the police are investigating the audio tapes. So it's going a step further.
Long to investigate.
Well, 3 weeks is not a long time if you're gathering information before deciding on whether or not to initiate a formal investigation. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau and the Fraud Squad of the police are also said to be investigating the matter. I saw a newspaper report earlier in the week which indicated that senior officers have been dispatched to Tobago and have taken up the mantle of investigating the audio tape. And now we're hearing news as of this morning that the Integrity Commission, as it should, because those persons are public officials. So it would be really remiss of the Integrity Commission not to launch an investigation, because from what we heard in the audio tape, it seems like there may be the involvement of state funding. So, and I don't buy the explanation of MP Anita Haynes, though we like her a lot and we respect her, that the word propaganda is the biggest issue here. No, absolutely not. What I heard in the audio tape doesn't seem to be above board or in the interest of integrity.
Correct.
I stand by that. Unless you could explain to me or play a whole tape to me that says something other than when we hear the end or the beginning of the conversation, based on what I heard, I feel Mr. Dumas, Dr. James, Martin George, everybody crazy. Everybody can't be crazy. What we heard in the audio without explanation does not sound above board. Good morning, Mr. Raghubasan.
Rich.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, we all in some sort of blue today.
And good morning to our listeners, wherever you are.
So you can talk about protecting the integrity of the THA and security with so much you want. That sounds very cryptic to me. And as I said before, after 3 weeks, you need to come a little better than that.
Yeah. Well said, Paul. Exactly.
It just seems like more deflection to me.
Yep.
It ain't going nowhere anytime soon. I can guarantee you that.
Balloon could fly. Right, Rich?
If balloons could fly, if they have
He
helium.
ain't look like he wake up yet.
It doesn't look like you wake up. He's woken up yet.
Like he ready wake up.
Wake up, Richie. Where's the coffee?
What coffee?
You see what I mean? Yeah, wake up yet.
Wake up yet.
No, I don't drink coffee yesterday.
You don't have coffee?
I drink. No, I mean, next
Listen.
hour I drink coffee.
I drink coffee within 5 minutes of waking up.
Take long. So for those who didn't hear it earlier,
have to measure whether or not it's in
You understand?
the
If you mean I can pay it off the board.
all of that I have to consider before making the statements I will make. So, and that's why I said I will set my agenda in terms of when I speak, because I have to count those steps carefully. Because at the end of the day, there is a state to be protected. And I will not always be chief secretary, but I want to ensure that there will always be an institution called the Tobago House of Assembly that can continue to thrive. And I have seen in this space, and yes, I perhaps wasn't like this a year ago, fresh out of the election. Trust me, they get knocked left, right, and center a long time. But I have seen in this space, for example, I have seen politicians in this space stand up and say some things, and I say, wow, they're right to say it. The information is correct, but it's very detrimental to the state and the security of state as a whole. I have to measure my steps carefully, and I will measure my steps carefully and make my statements quite definitively. When I make those statements, everyone won't be happy. And when I make those statements, it may bring some houses down on some people. But I will say what needs to be said at the right time. I have to measure whether or not it's in the larger public good.
Yeah. So that's Mr. Augustine from the meeting, I think, on Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Attendees are trained to say very little until they have another information. Not so? Until you have more information, just say, He's not coming off as an astute politician to me. You know? I think if it were him, and this is just postulating here because I don't know that it is him, coming out and saying, I think the conversation and the proposal may have been an error in judgment, which I apologize for. You know, it's not in the interest of good governance, and maybe the conversation and the proposal was a poor choice. Or that is not me, or you all didn't hear the start of it or the end of it, and it may be that we're talking at the start and the end that you didn't hear. We're talking about this is a proposal that was given to me, but we're not going to option it because we don't think it's in keeping with integrity and good governance in the assembly. But we've heard none of that. We've heard that there's some sort of security issue involved, and now we're hearing, based on that latest contribution from Mr. Augustine, that he will talk and he has to measure the longevity and the protection of the Tobago House of Assembly long after he's gone. The expression says it all.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul, that if it's you, admit it's you.
The first thing, admit it's you.
Admit it's a misstep. Mm-hmm. And at this juncture, let the party, your new party, take some level of censure against you, all in keeping with the proper and running and functioning of government. If you're setting an example, and if you're setting a new example in terms of the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, which is what you've articulated that you want to do, and let that censure be something that's, whatever it is, whatever it is, including you stepping down. And well, to me, the logical person to ascend is Faith Be Israel. But you can't ignore it.
Or in the absence of a further explanation that exonerates you.
Well,
from
yes.
what we do. Yeah. Because there may be an explanation, as I said before, in stuff that we didn't hear prior to the piece we heard or after the piece we heard, but you have not come out and said that.
Yeah, and if you're talking about protecting the state and you're talking about protecting the integrity of the place in which you sit, the Tobago House of Assembly, your silence has done more damage than you choosing to speak at whatever appointed time that you feel is necessary in making a statement that affords some level of integrity.
And
integrity,
clarity.
Yeah, integrity is about transparency, and integrity is often immediate. Transparency is often immediate because as the passage of time occurs, transparency becomes more and more opaque. And so the longer you take to speak, according to what he just said there, and he will speak on his own time, is a weak deflection to doing the right thing, which is admit or deny according to whatever the truth is.
Yeah.
People listening and who have listened to that audio, people who have listened to that audio tape already have a truth in their mind of what they think the truth is. But you can't pussyfoot with integrity and pussyfoot in what the right thing is to do in circumstances and wait for the public to tell you what the right thing to do is. Then you are not according with a course of behavior that stands up to the scrutiny of integrity. And many times our politicians fall short in that regard. And many times, sometimes it's public pressure that spurs them to do the right thing in terms of whatever action. And sometimes public pressure doesn't even accomplish it.
Yeah.
In a Trinidad and Tobago historical context.
Yeah. Well, I'm suggesting the question based on this now is this morning is, are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape?
Yeah.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it almost seems the stock response that Farley, I shouldn't say stock response, the response that Farley Augustine is giving so far, unfortunately, is coming from the
playbook.
The playbook of politics.
The playbook of old, long-standing politicians.
Yeah, in Trinidad and
Tobago. Unfortunately. That's what it sounds like to me. It's an old playbook. Yeah. I wouldn't talk now, not tonight, and all that kind of obfuscation and deflection. That's what it sounds like to me. A postponement of an inevitable...
Taking the higher ground, and just a little bit of advice to Farley Augustine. Taking the higher ground, whatever that ground is, and if it is that you're admitting to it and taking a position that's accountable to the people who have put you there, even if it means demitting power, albeit temporarily, it could be temporarily, until you go back to elections, and maybe you could, the people of Tobago say, we felt you did the right thing in terms of how you acted in a particular circumstance, and we will trust you again. Sometimes, not sometimes, taking the ground of transparency in your affairs and standing up for what you know.
But Richard, is the only way to go in public office. It's really the only way to go in public office.
Well, and also if you're talking transformative politics.
Yeah. It is the only way to go. There's no other way to go.
You can't talk transformative politics and play by some old playbook. You can't.
Yeah. And you will talk when you're ready to talk, as if the population must wait on you, particularly the population of Tobago, to explain this situation.
And it's not only damaging brand Farley Augustine, because he has a brand. It's not only damaging that, it's now damaging the brand TPP.
But by extension, Richard, it's damaging brand THA, because the THA must be seeking to attract investors into Tobago and partners to work with developing Tobago. And if investors and business people locally and regionally and globally hear that kind of audio tape and presume that is where business is conducted in Tobago, it will have an effect on people who are integritous to say, maybe I don't want to associate with that. You understand? And that's why it's important to clear your name and the goings on in the assembly, because it involves the goings on in the assembly. And it's larger than just Farley Augustine to me and the TPP. You understand? And sometimes they don't understand that it's not necessarily about you alone. It's about you, yes, brand TPP, brand THA, brand Tobago, and by extension, brand Trinidad and Tobago. When people like Mr. Dumas, Dr. James, Martin George, people who people have respected in Tobago for decades are coming out and making strong statements, and then you're talking about you will talk and bring houses down? You understand? Come on. People deserved a more profound response to this controversial tape than what you delivered on Monday. It's just like another delay or deflection or obfuscation. That's what it comes over as. And that's why Dr. James said what he said, I guess. It all seems to be self-serving sometimes. It's not in the larger interest. Because there's a larger interest involved here. Sorry?
Who's this? Win for James?
Dr. Vanas James.
Oh, Vanas. Right.
Yeah. There must be a larger interest, and I mean, he's intonating part of that with the protection of the integrity of the assembly. But it's the very integrity of the assembly that is in question based on what we heard. And in the absence of a further explanation and clarification, is the integrity of the running of the assembly. That's not so difficult to guess, to get. Anyway, you have papers?
Yes, I do.
Would you care to go ahead?
You want me to start reading it now, right?
That would be nice, thank you. You're very cranky this morning and sleep hours.
Sounding cranky.
The Trinidad and Tobago Daily Express. Let me start there. And the headline is Lucky to be Alive. That's the headline that the Daily Express went with. And it's concerning medical personnel and a passerby view one of the injured outside of the damaged vehicle yesterday on the Ria Butler Highway in the vicinity of Arthur Lockjack, a global school of business, after a tree fell following strong winds and landed on the car. You know, so I don't know if the car was actually on that stretch or parked up, or I'm not sure. But yeah, that's scary, the randomness of it. The Galil rifle that went missing, $0.4 million bail for soldier and civilian. That's also on the front page. And lightning destroys home. Family pleads for help. I saw that on news last night. Well, another sad story too. All right, so all of that is on the front page of the Daily Express. On the back page, I can head straight to there. Hayo Silva, TTO finished second in men's team sprint at Pan Am track cycling. West Indies face UAE in final warm-up, and Croatia beat Dutch in Nations League thriller. All of that is on the back page of the Daily Express in Trinidad and Tobago today. So since the headline of the Daily Express was Lucky to be Alive, it's only fit that I go to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, whose headline is Lucky to be Alive. It's like the editor said, let's print the same thing today. So lucky to be alive. The tree falls on car in freak accident along highway. Family of 3 and friend escape with minor injuries. That must have been a scary situation for them. When that occurred. Persad Besessa slammed for coalition talks, and $0.4 million bail for soldier and civilian in stolen Galil. kind of a lot of the same stories on the front page of The Guardian and The Express. It's almost like they colluded. And on the back page of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian today, sprint team earns silver. And that's it. That's all you need to know. Front and back of The Guardian. Moving on to the Newsday. What did the Newsday go with for their headline this morning? Exam scripts for 9 subjects missing from Jamaica school. CXC papers stolen is the headline. What the hell is going on, Jamaica? Because the previous leak also emanated out of Jamaica.
From Jamaica?
Yeah. So exam scripts for 9 subjects missing from Jamaica school. CXC papers stolen. I just hope this doesn't have repercussions to students across the Caribbean who would have taken.
But they're going ahead with the writing of the exam, but I mean.
Yeah. Ministry of Housing and Urban Development comforted Land Settlement Agency CEO Hazar Hossein Wright presents Samaya Pamphile with a certificate of comfort for a portion of state land at a distribution ceremony at the government campus plaza in Port of Spain on Wednesday. Court finds ex-BIR cashier for stealing $1.5 million. And the business magazine inside is about Kusal's dynasty. That's on the front page, apparently, of the business magazine inside. And it certainly is a dynasty. And on the back page of the daily, the Newsday, Mucket's late penalty sinks club Sando AC Port of Spain close in on title, and the Silver cracks 50 in T10 blast. So that's it for our 3 dailies this morning. So now you know what the main news items are on our 3 daily newspapers. And of course, today is Thursday, June 15th, 2023, and the weekend begins tonight, people, at the second after midnight. I just look so forward to weekends because I just sleep. It's my opportunity to get up late. And
a long weekend too.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's a long weekend. Oh joy, oh joy.
You know what I'm loving these days, on TikTok in particular? These videos people taking of Trinidad and Tobago showing how beautiful this country is. And the rivers and the lakes, the small lakes, and it's just stunning country. We have so much to be proud of. In spite of all the political dramas.
Yeah.
You should make a drive down Moruga. Lisa Solandi went down there and sent me some pics. Up there, down there is really, really nice.
Have they
Really,
improved
really
the road?
nice.
I think they were doing some. They were, at least they were planned road works.
No,
Well,
But you
not
can go
that
up
I
to
didn't.
the south now with the highway and then turn off. So, but some of the roads are still challenging. All right.
Let's
Well,
get
you
into
are
our
very
results
good.
of our morning poll from yesterday, where we asked you, do you think the state's response to the flooding in South Trinidad has been acceptable? 69%, 69 said no. Right, Paul, let's get into it.
So our question this morning is focusing on Tobago. Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? Yes or no?
Yep. All right. Good morning, Ashwin Leacock. Thank you, Sabita. Sankofa, thank you. Slick Money Grip. Good morning, Anthony Tinto, Marcia Rock, all locked on to YouTube. Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona. Thank you. Oliver Man Warren, Mr. Carapo, Rena Boodoo Jennings says no, not at all. All right, 222-8255. Toll free, North Americans, 866-525-1099. Also on our YouTube comments, you could you say yes or no. Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA's Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape.
Oh, you're getting a little fancy. I'm seeing the poll up already.
GNC Auto Security says no. CJ in New York says, have a fantastic day. You guys have a long weekend this weekend in the US. June, how is it pronounced? Juneteenth.
Some states will have it, not all.
Oh, okay. Garth Celia says no, not. Marival on road says hell no. Ish out in Malik says no. Let's see. Carol Guevara, no, he's on BS. Trevor Narima says no. Let's grab this call. Good morning. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning. This is Glenn from Queens.
Hey, Glenn.
Special good morning to Paul Richard Ragubar, and to the attorney. The answer is no.
All right, Glenn from Queens. Thank you. That's a no.
So our poll this morning, but you can see it. It's right in front of you. Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? That's our poll this morning. What says you, listeners? 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, toll free at 866-525-1099. People on the web and app, you know how to send your votes, and people in other parts of the planet, 1-868-222-TALK, 222-8255. We got everybody covered. So are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Sec Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape that has been making the rounds for the last, 3 weeks or so? Are you satisfied with his initial response? Yes or no? That's our poll this morning.
Slick Money Grip says, I vote no. They must all resign. Thank you, Slick Money Grip. All right, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. Of course, on our mobile app and website at power102fm.com, and on the comment section as we stream on YouTube. All right. Are you satisfied with Farley's response to the controversial audio tape? Yes or no? Tell us. Are you satisfied? Let's hear from the folks out in Tobago. Yeah. Call us, Tobago. Charlottesville. Black Rock. Give us a call. Tell us. Good morning, caller.
Only Tobago?
No. I would like some Tobago calls with an mix.
Okay, Grandy, no.
All right, Grandy. Sunny up there?
Very nice.
Nice. All right, thank you. Mr. Carapo says no to the poll. Thank you, Mr. Carapo. All right. Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA's Chief Secretary Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? Yes or no? Of course, next hour we'll be chatting with Dr. Valmiki Arjun. All right. So that's coming up after our 7 o'clock major news, which Avi is going to come in. The big bad wolf. I'm afraid of Avi, you know. I do. I'm afraid of Avi. But don't tell her that. Josie Richardson says, morning, gents. No. All right, Josie and the Pussycat.
So are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Sec Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? That's our poll this morning. So we're taking your votes. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. And that's toll free to you. and people on other parts of the planet, 1-868-222-TALK, as well as people on the web and the app. You can send your votes via the messaging portal on those platforms. Are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Sec Farley Augustine to the controversial audio tape? We would have played his response earlier on in the program in this hour. If you have it, you could play it again, probably, Steve.
I don't have it. Paul will have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Paul has it. Trini in Boston. No. Kazim Mohammed. No. Vaughn Drayton. No. Thank you so much. Am I not getting any calls from our beautiful sister Isle of Tobago? Charlottesville, where? I want to come and look for you when I come to Tobago, which I don't know when that is going to be. If you want to get a flight to Tobago this weekend, good luck. If last minute you decide, let me go to Tobago for a day or a night, good luck. That ain't happening. I don't know about the ferry, though. I really don't know. Money Maker says no. Thank you, Money Maker. All right, as we head up, we have a couple of seconds again to vote. Of course, our poll question is going to stay up on our app and website until tomorrow morning when we give you the final results after Richard reads the headlines of our 3 dailies. All right. Dr. Valmiki Arjun is our guest next hour. And of course, it is the middle of the month. It is the 15th day of June. Smack down in the middle of the month. All right. Any more calls coming in? Checking here. Checking there. I got nothing coming in. Good news, I have no accidents to tell you about. But if you're leaving Chaguanas on the Southern Main Road, that's heavy. You're going to get traffic from Chin Chin Road to Curep. Also, on Roosevelt Highway, you're going to get traffic from Waller Field straight up towards O'Mara, and then Piarco to Yui, and then interchange to Port of Spain and sticky Eastern Main Road. Sticky as well, but lighter from Mount Hope heading towards Mova Junction. On a Maraval, heavy. All right. As we wait for AV to run in here. Oh, the ground is shaking. She's coming. I can feel it. Yep, the ground is shaking. AV, Richard was bad talking here. No. Yeah, he said, I hear AV coming, the ground is shaking. Okay. Yeah, that's what he said. All right.
I will never say anything like that.
Never ever, Richard. I know you would never ever say something like that. Only people with very, very small minds and brains would say something like that.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure you said something like that.
No, yeah. Paul.
Well, I won't be working here for much longer. Let me do my last newscast, please.
Please, let's get into it. All right.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
The papers of 9 subjects of CSAC and CAPE examinations have been stolen, raising fresh concerns for thousands of students across the region. The Integrity Commission reportedly launches an investigation into a viral voice note that may implicate persons in the THA. And political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Watson Duke, tells Farley Augustine that his administration should resign from the leadership of the THA. Details in a moment. This is a new This is News 2, 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. The papers for 9 subjects of CSAC and CAPE examinations have been stolen, raising fresh concerns for thousands of students across the region. In a statement, the Caribbean Examination Council said it was informed yesterday that fireproof cabinets containing examination papers for 9 subjects scheduled to be administered this week was stolen from a school in Jamaica. CXC said it is determining the course of action and will communicate with the Ministries of Education. The Ministry of Education yesterday said that despite the incident, there are no proposed changes to the CSAC and CAPE examinations scheduled at this time. The Integrity Commission has reportedly launched an investigation into the viral voice note in which 2 people can be heard planning to use Tobago House of Assembly funds to hire persons to promote propaganda for a political party. According to media reports in the Newsday, a preliminary assessment is expected to be completed by Friday. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau and the Fraud Squad of the police are also said to be investigating the matter. Political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Watson Duke, has told Farley Augustine that his administration should resign from the leadership of the Tobago House of Assembly following the controversial voice note issue where individuals were heard discussing hiring persons under the THA to spread propaganda on behalf of the new Tobago People Party. Mr. Duke, speaking at a news briefing held at his party's headquarters in Scarborough, Tobago this week, said Mr. Augustine should provide an update to the nation on this development, and the longer he takes to do so, it would not be good for the country.
More than that, it's not a matter for the chief secretary, it's a babe. The folks around him who are as responsible as much as him, they all should resign. They have failed Tobago. Silence? How could Tobago, the one who is responsible for having you elected in the first place, call upon you for an answer and you give them silence? Silence? You are so busy? Busy doing what? You're not answering phone call, you're not meeting people, you're not doing any single thing. What are you busy doing?
Mr. Duke said continued silence from Mr. Augustine on this subject is not the way to go.
But I want to say on the voice note issue, I await the chief secretary, the person who holds himself out to be chief secretary, to speak on that matter. I have a lot to say on that. A lot to say on that voice note specifically.
Meanwhile, THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine said that he will speak extensively on the issue when he is ready to do so. Mr. Augustine made the comment while speaking during a Tobago House of Assembly district meeting held this week at the Fairfield complex in Tobago.
A lot of people in the media want me to talk on their time. That's one thing I don't do. I set my own agenda. The media doesn't set my agenda. But beyond that, I will speak extensively on the issue. And I can tell you this is more than just an audio tape and involves some security considerations, extremely serious at that requires me as leader to ensure I spend enough time mulling over it.
You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Further afield, a report by MPs says ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson deliberately misled the Commons over lockdown parties at Number 10. The committee says it would have recommended suspending Johnson from the House for 90 days. It says he deliberately misled the House, the committee, impugned the committee, and was complicit in the campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee. It also recommends the former Prime Minister should not get a pass, which allows ex-MPs to access Parliament after they leave. Last week, Johnson stepped down as a Tory MP after being given advance sight of the Privileges Committee's report. In an explosive statement, he called the committee a kangaroo court whose purpose has been to find him guilty regardless of the facts. Johnson has admitted his statements misled Parliament, but denied doing so intentionally or recklessly. The committee made recommendations, but it is up to the Commons to decide whether to accept them. Well, finally, here is weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago partly cloudy with scattered light to moderate showers. There is the low to medium chance that a few of these showers will become heavy and thundery, favoring but not confined to southern areas of Trinidad. Fairer conditions are expected by late afternoon despite the lingering shower and the low chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding are possible near heavy downpours or thunderstorms. There is still an orange level high winds alert in effect. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 31 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco International Airport and Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, the temperature at both Piarco and Crown Point is 27 degrees Celsius. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock. The papers for 9 subjects of CSAC and CAPE examinations have been stolen, raising fresh concerns for thousands of students across the region. The Integrity Commission has reportedly launched an investigation into a viral voice note which may implicate persons in the THA. And political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, Watson Duke, tells Fali Augustine and his administration they should resign from the leadership of the Tobago House of Assembly. I'm Avril St. Hilbab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon today and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All righty. Thank you, Evie. Yeah, for our major news, of course, you can join her again at 8 o'clock for our news brief, and again at noon with Sir Charles for our major news at noon. All right. Quickly, let's get into our traffic update, see what's happening on the highways and the byways. Diego Martin, not too bad. Approaching Christmas Stream, you've got it. If you're coming down Mount Coco Road towards the highway, you got some volume there as you get into Western Main Road. Out of Maraval, usual stuff out of Moke towards the roundabout, Lower Santa Cruz, not Cruz. Lady Young Road from Coconut Drive to Lookout, you've got some there as well in Lower Santa Cruz. You've got it. Let me head out east, see what's going on east. Yeah. Volume from Santa Rosa to O'Meara, Piarco. Towards you, we come around to Trin City is also heavy as well. Valsane and Port of Spain, you've got it. Kelly Village and going to taking the airport, the bypass road, you've got traffic. Southern Main Road from Chaguanas. Going through Enterprise, you've got it. The Chaguanas Main Road is heavy as well. On the eastern side, and of course, from Chin Chin Road to Ibis Gardens, you've also got some traffic. Let me head down to Solo and make my way up north. San Fernando. Yeah, the creek. Got a little bit of volume, but San Fernando is lighter than usual. Going through Princess Town and Cedar Hill, you've got some traffic there. Rivulet Road heading to Couva, Point Lisa's heavy. With no traffic, and of course, you will get traffic just before you get to Monroe Road, heading towards the interchange. Eastern Main Road, usual spots, you've got some traffic there as well. All right. So we're back. Let's see here. I got 2 people. Una, Antoine, good morning. We didn't vote yes or no. Okay. We just want yes or no. All right. Okay. So I got no new votes for you, Richie Rich. Where did he go?
Right. So our poll this morning was, are you satisfied with the initial response of THA Chief Sec Fali Augustine to the controversial audio tape? We had 16 people voting in the allotted time. Of the 16 people, everybody said no, they're not satisfied. So, of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, throughout programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow morning, which will be Friday.
Yeah, and you know we love a Friday. We do love a Friday. Practicing my singing. All right. As we wait for Dr. Arjun to come on, Valmiki Arjun, he should be in shortly. Yeah, okay. I got that. No, I don't.
Oh. Raghu Basin, can you give us a status update on the television show that you're working on?
Well, there's a countdown to the red carpet.
Why is your camera off, sir?
Yeah, I'll put it on shortly. It's a
I'd
countdown
like
to
to
the
see
red.
the shining face, you know.
It's a countdown to the red carpet. I think the red carpet event will be on the 27th of June.
Okay.
Wow,
I guess you're right everything now.
Which will be the showcase. Well, which is showcasing the first episode.
Oh, that'll be great. Steve, I wonder where you get picked, boy.
I wonder, boy.
Think we'll get picked?
I don't know, you know. Nah.
So some
Well, I won't get big. I'm a small fry. You're the big one in the dance here, you know.
Yeah, Steve, there's nothing. Well, you're a small fry. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's an
You're not a small fry. Large kind of guy.
PG. Keep it PG.
But it's in post-production right now.
That's great. Congrats again.
Why is Hayden harassing you there, Richard?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So it's in post-production right now, so you know it's on its way. And you know, post is very long. It's a very long process.
Oh yeah, editing. What?
Editing takes a while.
Oh yeah.
Good morning, Dr. Arjun.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Not bad at all.
You look like you're in the old Power 102 studio there, Dr. Arjun.
Oh yeah. I think you mentioned that the last time.
That wall is very familiar looking.
Yeah, we have that kind of wall inside this building as well.
Yeah. All right. Good morning. Well, I know we call you on one thing, but we can't help but ask you a question this morning as a conscientious citizen. We asked this morning. I don't know if you've had a shot of the and sight of the press conference held by or the statement by Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Farley Augustine, on the controversial audio tapes. And our question this morning is: are you satisfied with the initial response of the Chief Secretary to the audio tapes?
Well, to be quite honest, I actually did not listen to Mr. Farley. I haven't been following that particular issue, so I wouldn't be able to give you a very informed answer at this point.
All right, but let's jump right into it. I want to start with the issue of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and the initial loss. So from what I've gleaned from professionals in the field, that it was a loss of global fund value. Not only Trinidad and Tobago was affected in various investment areas, but it had recovered by over $500 million so far. But that is not necessarily as a result of anything we did. It's just a global value change at that moment. Can you kind of elaborate and give us your perspective, please?
Yeah, so this is really all due to market fundamentals. So if we were to look at the data, right, go back to December 2019, at that point, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund would have reported their highest ever value of about $6.4 billion US. But given the new figure that the minister provided recently, that value fell by about $1.08 billion in June 2023. And of course, since 2016, the state would have withdrawn about $2.5 billion from the fund for budgetary purposes, most of which would have been withdrawn to meet the massive shortfalls given the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. Now, apart from this, the fund lost about $913 million in the last fiscal year, from September 21 to September 22. But we have to remember that we also made a deposit in September 2022 of about 163.9 million. So when we take that into account, the actual fall in value would have been about $751 million. But nevertheless, these are still very heavy losses. And they're primarily due to the rapid surge in the US interest rates, which would have in turn affected market fundamentals. So you would recall last year, over 50 economies would have increased their central bank rates to combat global inflation. And the most notable of this would have been the Federal Reserve, where they increased their rates by about 10 times. In fact, it went from 0.08% in February 2022 to where it is now of about 5.25% in these present times. So this would have caused the HSF to take a hammering last year in several ways. Now, before I go on, just for the benefit of the viewers as well, let me just mention that the fund, it comprises of different portfolios. So the most recent report in December 2022 would have indicated that the majority, which is usually the norm, the majority of the fund is invested in fixed income securities, primarily in bonds, roughly of about 53%. 21% of the portfolio goes into US-based equities, 19% goes into international equities, non-US based equities, and then about 6.75% goes into US fixed deposits. So first and foremost, the most direct impact that these interest rates had on the fund would have been via bond prices. Now remember, the majority is invested in bonds. Now, whenever interest rates rise, meaning that the return that you get on bonds, that causes prices to fall. So bonds tend to have a negative bond returns. The interest rates tend to have a negative return, a negative relationship rather, with bond prices. So when rates rise, the prices will fall. And of course, when prices fall, it affects the bond value aspect of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, which is again over 53% of the fund's value. So the rate hike would have naturally caused the price to fall, and that part of the fund lost substantial value. And also when we look at the data, the total asset value of that aspect fell, of the fixed income aspect, it fell from about 2.78 billion in September 2021. So all the bond in September 2021,
I think he may be having some bandwidth issues.
He's doing fine. Hopefully to rectify itself shortly.
Can you all hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we hear you now. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Right. So let me just backtrack a bit. So when we look at the data, given the surge in the interest rates, which would have caused bond prices to fall, the total portfolio value of these bond securities, it fell from about 2.78 billion in September 2021 to about 2.5 billion in June 2022. But then it picked back up to about 2.6 billion in September, and most recently, the last figure we have is 2.7 billion in December of last year. And of course, the reason for this improvement would have been the fund managers, those in charge of making the investment decisions for the fund. They naturally recognizing that you can earn a higher rate of return by investing in the bonds, they would have since made investments in new bond instruments, more so the short-term treasuries, which are of course paying higher yields or higher returns. So from September last year to December last year, for example, 3-month treasuries would have the rate of return on 3-month treasuries would have gone from 2.9% to a whopping 4.42%. The 1-year bond increased from 4.03% to 4.73%. So that's a 0.7% increase. The 2-year bond, that went up by about from about 4.29%, sorry, to now to about 4.424% in December. And as a result of the rise in the interest rates and the new investments made in these short-term treasuries, that naturally affected the fixed income value because of these higher returns. Then in that quarter, the value of the last quarter of last year, the value of the fixed income investment alone would have gone up by over $200 million US dollars in that space of 3 months. And if we looked at the rates today, in fact, just last night I was looking at the rates, and the rates are even higher. The 3 month and the 1 year are approximately 5.2%. So it's not surprising to hear that the minister say that the HSF value now stands at about $5.466 billion. When you look at the rate of return that we're getting on bonds, more so the short-term bonds, the short-term treasuries.
No, looking at the ordinary man looking on is not going to disaggregate those figures very easily. You're trained in the area. And the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is named that for a particular reason. One, it's for long-term investment for the country's future. And two, it's a stabilization option when times are difficult, as we have done during COVID.
Yeah, as we would have seen during the pandemic times. And even before then, when the energy prices would have taken a serious hit.
Yeah. Looking at the performance of the fund over the last, let's say, 10 or 5 years, do you think the management of the fund, and it's managed by the central bank, who hire experts to look at where to invest the money and look at the trends, etc., is the fund is being managed optimally? And it's a really simplified question, because quarter by quarter, year by year, you may see particular trends, and it may not be an indication of the overall performance. But give us a sense of what you think in terms of the management of the fund.
Well, you see, at the end of the day, we are not. It's not made public. The information is not made public as to what their investment strategies are, explicitly what their investment strategies are. But in any fund, not just the HSF, but in any fund, you can always find ways to optimize your rate of return. Now, these losses were quite significant, so I have to wonder, not necessarily wonder, but I do agree with some of the economists that they could have implemented further risk management models in order to mitigate a lot of the risks that they would have incurred last year, more specifically so the interest rate risks. In fact, the interest rate risk, as I was just talking about, it didn't really just affect the bond aspect. It also affected the equities aspect, which I will get to now, because remember I indicated that about 19% or so, 21% goes into US equities and about 19% goes into the international equities. Now, what really happened last year with the equity side of things, and how could they have in turn mitigated some of this? So when the rates increased, remember when rates increase, your borrowing rates would go up as well. And borrowing rates tend to be interest that you pay on loans. That is part of a company's expense, interest expense, right? So the higher your interest expense, the higher their expenses overall, that would have stymied the growth in earnings for many of these companies that are listed on stock markets. So these reduced earnings for these companies would have, of course, affected investor confidence as an investor, as an international investor. When you see the earnings of companies being affected because of these higher interest rates, naturally it will cause you to develop some sort of uncertainty or less confidence in those companies and their stocks. So you're forced to sell off some of those stocks over time. And in selling it off, it pushes the price of those stocks downward. And of course, when the price goes downward, it affects that equity part of the fund, the equity value of the fund. And then, of course, the higher interest rates meant less borrowing for spending by consumers, less loans that they would have taken out. So with reduced spending, it meant also that companies' earnings would have been affected. Companies may have started taking out less loans for investment purposes, and again, that naturally it would have negatively affected not just their earnings, but also their stock prices because of the investor sentiment, and that caused an equity sell-off. So prices would have naturally fallen. Now, what could the investment managers done differently? We know that they mitigate risk by taking steps to mitigate currency risk and interest rate risk, etc. But one thing that I don't think that they do is look at investments in derivative securities. Now, what do I mean by derivative securities? And this is a little complex. I'm going to try to break it down as easy as possible. So we need to take other risk measures into account apart from diversifying the portfolio of the HSF. So two things that they could do is invest in things like call options and put options. Now, what are call and put options? When you invest in a call option, think of it this way, it's like a contract where the owner of the option itself has the right, not necessarily the responsibility, but the right at a particular date to buy a stock or a set of stocks from a particular seller. Now, if the stock is higher, and of course at a prearranged price, they buy it at a prearranged price. Now, if the market price, let's say for that stock is $100, but the contracted price that they could buy it from is $90, well, where are they going to buy it from? They'll of course go and exercise that right, that option, and buy it from the seller directly and not go necessarily to the market because they're getting it cheaper there. So you could buy it, given that call option, you could buy it cheaper from the particular seller and not have to go to the market. So of course you're buying it cheaper there, but so you save some money, but the value of that stock when it gets to the fund, it is priced now at the overall market price. So you're buying it cheaper, but it is reflective of a higher value. And then you can take a put option. The put option is basically the reverse, where you invest in a contract that allows you to sell stocks at a particular price. So you might invest in a contract that allows you to sell a stock, gives you the right to sell a stock at a particular date for $120. And then the market price of that stock might be $100. But you have a locked-in price to sell it at $120. So when you sell that at $120, you make a $20 extra, $20 extra. And again, that would provide an additional bumper to the fund. So those are two very simple ways of trying to mitigate the risk that is associated with the equity side of the fund, and not just the equity side. You can apply derivatives to the other aspects, the other investment securities of the fund as well. And of course, when investment managers engage in derivatives, they can create their own derivative model as well to mitigate risk. But the idea is that you can basically lock in certain contractual prices early o'clock. So no matter what is happening in the prices, you can buy it cheaper or sell it at a more expensive price.
But the ordinary man looking on is subject to, I guess, who's making pronouncements on the performance of the fund and the impact on their lives. So a lot of the conversation has been since the Express front page indeed about the loss, which is not inaccurate because the fund did lose at that time.
Yeah.
You know, what does it mean for their lives in Trinidad and Tobago? Because they're not going to go through the machinations of push and pull and put and portfolio diversification and risk management and stuff like that. They want to know how this is affecting my life. How is it affecting their life?
So there's the most direct way, the most obvious way, which is where, excuse me, the most obvious way, which is where if there is a significant shortfall in budgetary revenues at a particular point in time, then of course the government has the rights to go into the fund. Naturally, the less money the fund has because of improper management by the investment managers, or if markets continually take a beating, then when the fundamentals are affected, so the value of the fund goes down, then that of course gives the government less flexibility in terms of how much they can actually withdraw. Because of course, if there's less money in there, then naturally there's less that you're able to work with. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that if there's less money in that particular fund, in the fund, and we continually are drawing down on the fund, remember there's the heritage aspect. What part of the fund is going to be left for the future generation of this country? That in addition cannot be ignored. In fact, I've always held the view that the fund needs to be split into two parts. The stabilization part, we've made good use of the fund so far for that particular reason. But what about the heritage part? We don't want to be in a position one day where we risk having to continually draw down on the fund, and then you wake up one morning and you ask yourself, well, hang on, what is left for our children and our grandchildren later on? So that's one obvious way. Now, a second way, and I think a lot of us are overlooking this fact. When credit rating agencies, the Standard & Poor's and the Moody's, come to Trinidad and Tobago every year to give us a credit rating, part of their analyses for our credit rating is looking at the fact that we have the HSF still. In fact, Standard & Poor's always says this, that failing if our ability to meet our international debt obligations, our debt repayment obligations to foreign countries, we can always turn to the HSF. Now, naturally, pragmatically speaking, you want to avoid that at all costs. You don't want to go to the HSF to be able to repay your debts. But these credit rating agencies nonetheless view our HSF as one of our major assets that back up our debt repayment ability. So the lower the value of the fund, the international credit ratings agencies are going to pay careful attention to this. And if the value of the fund continues to fall, and perhaps if it falls below whatever threshold they may be using, then that could negatively affect our credit ratings as well. And of course, that when your credit ratings are negatively affected, that in itself carries a host of other implications as well, especially when it comes to our ability to raise funds from the international community later on.
Well, let me just read something that will give the audience a comparative as to how funds can become volatile. And I'm going to read from Reuters, dated January 31st, 2023. And the title of the article is Norway's Wealth Fund posts a record $164 billion loss. And for those who may not know, Norway's Wealth Fund is one of the world's largest investors, posting a record loss of 1.64 trillion crowns or $164.4 billion in 2022, bringing to an end a 3-year run of soaring profits as stocks and bonds were hit by the Ukraine war and inflation. The previous largest loss was 633 billion crowns in 2008. Now, it goes on to say later on that, quote, in terms of trying to diversify, and Norway is a large country and one of the higher performing countries in various indices globally. They are invested in 9,000 companies in 70 countries. And they say there was just nowhere to hide from the volatility of the global markets. So it's give us a sense of that country and the size of their investments and the diversity of their investment. 9,000 companies, you understand? Compared to Trinidad and Tobago, a much smaller country, a much, 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 much smaller HSF fund, and how those two, if at all, can be compared in terms of trying to buffer a country from the global volatility in the markets.
So the markets will, as I indicated in the beginning, the fundamentals in the markets, right? The characteristics in the market, then they always affect the fund performance, no matter what. And it's not just the HSF. It can be a private equity fund, a fixed income fund by any small investment bank. Of course, these super large investment funds held by sovereign nations like the fund in Norway. But I just want to point out, since we're talking about international funds, I chose Singapore for a reason, because in Trinidad we always like to benchmark ourselves. At least that's the impression I get. We like to benchmark ourselves to Singapore, and Singapore is that a productive benchmark? We and it's primarily driven by our comparative sizes. Yeah. Now, in Singapore, their sovereign wealth fund is Temasek Holdings. And when I look at Temasek Holdings data, their sovereign wealth fund is actually looking at the last figure. It's actually the highest it's ever been. In 2020, it was about $306 billion US. 2021, it went up to, this is March figures, 2021, it went up to about 381 billion. And then in March 2022, the latest figure that they have, it went up to about 403 billion, which is the highest it's ever been. So some countries like Singapore managed to utilize their risk management models and avert any sort of or mitigate effect that volatility and other negative factors would have had on their investment portfolio, and saw to it that the value of the fund continued to increase. So it really means to say, and it begs the question rather, do we need to now pay careful attention to our investment portfolio in the HSF? Because Norway invests in about, as you mentioned just now, 9,000 various companies. So we here in our local HSF, we benchmark ourselves, and you probably saw it in the report that we benchmark ourselves to something called the strategic asset allocation. And that is made up of several different indices. So there's the Russell 3000 index for the equity side. There is the MSCI the MSCI Europe, Asia, and Far East index, excluding the energy companies, and that is for the international equities. And lastly, for the bonds, there's the Bloomberg Barclays aggregate bond index. The Bloomberg Barclays aggregate bond index. So we are benchmarking ourselves to these international indices. But I can't help but think that perhaps we need to look at our risk portfolio in general and look at other ways to earn higher returns. And that might very well involve not just engaging in the more developed markets, but by going into markets like equity markets, for example, that pay you, that may very well pay you or will very well pay you a higher rate of return by, for example, investing in certain equities. You should of course start off small, but invest in equities that give you, for example, a higher dividend yield that may be from economies such as the BRICS economies. Emerging economies tend to give you a higher rate of return because where there's higher risk, there's higher expected return to be made. But of course, you need to implement the risk management strategies, which is what I would have tried to describe a bit earlier. That's just part of it, to try to mitigate any sort of losses that you could possibly incur by stepping into these markets as well. So it's not just about what total amount of companies that you look at. It's about how effective your diversification strategies are, because you can invest into 9,000 companies. But let's say, for argument's sake, that those 9,000 companies, the bulk of them belong to one particular sector, one particular economic sector. And that sector takes a bludgeoning at one particular time. Then the stock prices of all those companies are going to fall. And because you've invested in the majority of those companies, then the value of your fund is going to take a hammering at that point in time. It's going to fall substantially. So I think what is more important than the number of companies that they invest in, it's more what is more important is the diversification strategy that they have. And secondly, as part of your diversification strategy, you might not just want to consider investing in stocks and bonds. You might want to consider investing in other financial instruments like financial derivatives, etc., and also going a bit more into the emerging economies, emerging equity markets, like those markets in the BRICS.
How's our economy doing presently, overall?
Our economy? Well, as you would have heard the Minister of Finance indicate in the mid-year review, the revenue streams are healthy. In fact, it was about 1 billion. The shortfall from their budgeted estimates for the first 6 months of the year was just 1 billion short. It was 27 billion, and he budgeted about 28 billion. We're expecting about, I think it was about 3.2% growth in the economy this year. Now, what we have to remember is that you can't benchmark yourselves to where you were last year, right? This is something that that I think the state has to recognize, the authorities have to recognize, both the Minister of Finance and the central bank governor. When you're looking at our growth figures, it should be looked at where we were in 2019 compared to the end of 2022. And when we look at that, looking at our GDP figures, then the economy would have still declined by over 6%. So we're nowhere near better off than where we were in 2019. That is where we.
Let's not disaggregate that. I'm glad that you brought that up, because on one hand, yes, comparing oneself to just at the end of COVID and saying you're growing past that growth rate at that time.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit.
Yeah, when you hit rock bottom, there's only one place to go.
There's only one place to go because you were in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So the practical thing is where you were pre-pandemic 2019 or the middle of second quarter or so 2019 before the pandemic kicked in third quarter 2019, early 2020. But on the other hand, there can be an argument, Prophet, that, well, all countries may be doing that, or are they? Because all countries experience significantly diminished growth in the pandemic, and all countries have to climb out of that abyss, so to speak. So which one should we look at? Which approach?
So of course it is quite understandable that the rest of the global, or many rather in the global economy, they're faced with the same challenges. However, in my view, arguing that the economy is growing, while it is, yes, certainly growing, and we are very grateful for that and hope that it does continue, I think whatever we benchmark ourselves to should not, or rather not benchmark, we shouldn't fall in a comfort zone. We have a tendency in Trinidad and Tobago, especially, I think the authorities, they fall in a comfort zone. When they find that there's a positive growth trajectory or your revenue streams are healthier than where it was, we tend to get a bit lackadaisical. So even if we are growing, and the IMF is right, we have to wait to see at the end of the year if that really pans out to be true or not. It could very well be lower, it could very well be higher, let's see. But we should be implementing new strategies to bring our growth rate higher. If the IMF is telling us it is 3.2% or how much ever it is, we need to try to double that at the very least so we can get back to the position where we were at the end of 2019. That is where we ought to be setting our sights to. So yes, you're absolutely right. What we are facing right now, positive growth, yes, most welcome, is what other countries they have to endure. And mind you, there are other countries that are still reeling in a worse manner than we are from the pandemic and experiencing negative growth. However,
but Dr. Ajud, no, the statements are one, financial, and the statements are also political, because no political party or entity is going to pass up on the opportunity to say we grew by 3%. They're not going to say, well, we didn't grow by 6% between 1 to 2, but we grew by 3%. They're going to maximize the trend.
Yeah, but you could also say, yes, we have grown, or we have grown by 2.5% last year, and this year we are carded, according to the IMF, to grow by 3.2%. But I want to urge the private sector to accelerate. Don't just mash the brakes. I want you all to accelerate on whatever you're doing, because we want to ramp this up even further. We want to show the IMF and the rest of the world that, yeah, you're giving us 3.2%, but we are actually going to be doing better. And heck, in fact, make a promise to yourself, set a benchmark that we are going to try to grow this year by about 6.5%. A lot of what I'm not a political analyst, I'm an economist, but I mean, when you're watching how politicians behave, a lot of it is centered around confidence and perception. A large part of it has to do with the confidence that you engender in the business, in the private sector. And I think encouraging the private sector to ramp up the state of their production levels overall, which really and truly is what leads to growth. More so now in the non-energy sector, manufacturing sector has been performing wonderfully in the last 18 months.
But the private sector is only going to ramp up production. Private sector in this country is very risk averse, and I understand it. They're not going to put out money that they're not sure they're going to make. They're in the business of making money. But private sector's consideration of ramping up production and investing more is against the backdrop of the general state of play in the country. They have increased input costs with security. They may have lowered revenues through purchasing. And they have to look at all that before they make decisions about ramping up production, because ramping up production is one thing. Where you're selling the stuff.
Well, but the manufacturing sector has been doing relatively well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually now about to make that particular point. The manufacturing sector for the last 18 months we've been seeing considerable growth from them. In fact, when we look at from the third quarter of 2021 to the third quarter of 2022, you're seeing growth that is well over 23%. alone, in just one sector alone. I'm not referring to the energy component of the manufacturing side. This is the non-energy component. And they have been faced with those exact same pressures that you were talking about, a lot of which hits the ease of doing business as we term it. So, and it is continuing, but rather they are finding ways to make use of their limited resources. Remember, at the end of the pandemic, there was a surge in international demand, especially coming out of the United States, coming out of other developed countries in the manufacturing sector. They took well advantage of that. What helped them was, in our instance, was also the assistance that the Exim Bank would have provided to them. Remember, a lot of their raw material costs, their raw materials are imported, and the raw material costs would have gone up. And that what helped to buffer the increased cost of the cost of production that you are referring to, quite rightly so, would have been the additional assistance that the Exim Bank provided to them with respect to foreign exchange. And they made excellent use of that. In fact, as I understand it, there are some manufacturers now that have decreased their reliance on the Exim Bank substantially because of the amount of monies that they would have earned most recently from their increase in the exports. So they have their own foreign exchange to fall back on, and there's somewhat less reliance on the foreign exchange from the Exim Bank to help them to import their raw materials, etc. So that is I would say in spite of all of these challenges that are being faced, there are elements of the private sector that are showing excellent signs of resilience. But
is there more the state should be doing to facilitate or augment that growth in the non-energy sector and the manufacturing sector?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there more that the state should be doing to augment the growth trends in the private sector, particularly the non-energy manufacturing sector?
Oh yes, certainly. First of all, as we're on the topic of foreign exchange, while manufacturers have it a bit easier to get access to foreign exchange, given the work of the Exim Bank, that problem, that significant foreign exchange shortages, or access to rather, for other elements of the private sector still very much holds, especially when it comes to the SMEs. And I know recently there was some talk about the Exim Bank being expanding their reach to include SMEs as well. I think that's an excellent idea, but it seems as though there's been no real progress with that just as yet. And that's just one element. I mean, you have other simple things that can go, that do have significant implications and go a long way. Problems at the port, problems with respect to customs being able to clear to clear raw materials and goods imported on time. I mean, it makes no sense when a sector like the manufacturers are performing quite efficiently, or when other sectors like the retail sector, etc., they've imported commodities for resale, commodities that are going to help the scope of the scale of their production levels go faster and be ramped up. But there are significant delays at the port, especially with respect to customs, productivity at the port as well. All of these things, it hampers your production levels with respect to manufacturing, and it hampers your ability to meet your sales orders with respect to the retail sector as well. And not to mention, of course, that there is a substantial demand. In fact, just the other day, another colleague of mine, we were chatting about it. There's a substantial demand for foreign commodities with respect to online shopping. That, of course, has caused the retail sector to take a significant hit as well. And despite the mechanisms that the minister has,
bandwidth, you come back just now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful internet service.
Well, depends on where you are and who your service provider is.
All right, there you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So as I was saying, that element of the customs issue, the ports issue, even things like us being able to digitize the way in which we do transactions with the state as quickly as possible, given that the technology is already there in terms of things like the single electronic window.
But Dr. Arthur, it's interesting you mentioned the mechanisms that the Minister of Finance put in place to limit online spending and limit the amount of Amazon purchases we're doing.
They haven't worked.
But isn't it also part of the responsibility of the local merchants to make it as easy as Amazon to go on and click, get stuff in the local market and have it delivered to your house? Because that's why people choose Amazon, because it's easy, it's seamless. Even buying stuff around the world, primarily in the US and the UK, and having it shipped to Trinidad and Tobago, it is still easier than buying stuff in the local environment and having it shipped to Trinidad and having it transported to your house. And that is what makes Amazon so effective.
Yeah, and less costly, but it is. So while from the consumer standpoint, it is less costly. It is more convenient as well, but at the same point in time, when you think of it from a businessman's perspective, a local businessman's perspective, they need to change the way in which they do business because they are losing customers as a result of that. In fact, so being involved in each Chaguanas chamber, I tend to try to interact a lot with the retail sector as often as possible. And sometimes when you walk in these malls, and you notice for yourself, they have stocks there that have not been sold in months. And the businessmen tell you that things are actually quite slow. They're not getting sales. But when you look at the prices that are being charged, it is incredible. And part of the reason that the prices are so high, it's really because of the very high cost that they incur. Not just the cost of doing business, but the high rental charges that are likely to go up whenever the property tax is implemented, and shopping mall owners have to pay higher property tax as well. They will naturally pass that on to the.
And what do you think the net effect of that property tax initiation is going to be in 6 months?
In 6 months, well, remember the thrust of the property tax is supposed to provide local government with added funds to meet whatever corporation needs that they may have for infrastructure. Right? Yeah, you're crossing your fingers there. And I can't really blame you for that. Given how much the amount of monies that they perceive or they project to earn from the property tax, I have to really wonder how much progress they're going to make from an infrastructural standpoint with respect to that, one. And two, I also have to wonder about the transparency of these monies given what tends to go on in these local government corporations. One, the need for local government reform in the country, and of course the fact the issue of the monies going into the consolidated fund as opposed to a separate fund strictly for local government. All these issues are going to crop up. Now, with respect to the business community, whenever the whole issue of this is yet going to be another increase in their cost of doing business, which is again going to cause us to see things like higher prices over time. Not just, I wouldn't say when respect to the 6 months after the property tax is implemented. I would say in a short space after that, and within the space of 2 months, you're going to find that prices are higher in the local context. You're going to find that some odd businesses out there might take advantage of the situation, and if it is warranted that you increase prices by $1. Some of them might throw up prices by about $2, and that calls for additional monitoring by those in the Ministry of Authority, the Ministry of Trade, those in authority like Consumer Affairs, etc. But that in itself need to wait to see how that pans out when the property tax is implemented. I personally waiting to see when this thing is going to be implemented, because it can only be implemented at the earliest next year, given that according to the legislation, you have until March 31st to send, according to legislation, March 31st to send out the notice of assessments to the public. Of course, we way past that deadline for 2023. If we're doing it in 2024, I might be kind of surprised to see that happening, given that 2025 is a general elections year. So close to general elections, I have to wonder if the government is going to
be minded to do it at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
they
may or they may not. I've seen the government and sometimes the Minister of Finance tend to do certain things that it a bit surprising at that point in time. So you never know with these guys.
I wanted I know before the interview ends, I just wanted to touch on the energy industry, and the price of gas, natural gas, has been trending generally below what the Minister of Finance would have assessed in terms of fiscal 2023. And I'm wondering how worried we should be about that. Or is it that they are negotiating better gas prices outside of the US and probably looking at, I don't know where they're selling it. I'm not that informed in terms of the natural gas sector, but certainly the international prices have been trending lower than what the Minister of Finance would have forecasted.
Yeah, so that is correct. The international prices are trending lower. You would recall in the mid-year review, he gave a breakdown of exactly how they come up with our gas price, and it's not, even though they tend to talk about Henry Hub quite a lot, and as we're on the topic of the Henry Hub, right now that particular price is in the vicinity of about 2.39. So it's quite low, but our gas price is more of an amalgamation of several international benchmarks, not just the Henry Hub. So there's prices like the Asian prices as well, which are quite high relative to prices like the Henry Hub. However, when all of these prices fall, all of these international benchmarks fall, it means that while our price will still be higher than the American price, the Henry Hub, our price is still falling at the same time. So even if they've set a benchmark, they basically budget on a price of, I think it was about $6.50 if I'm not mistaken. And at the time of the mid-year review, the minister indicated it was roughly around that particular level. Once the aggregate international prices are falling, then our aggregate price is also going to fall as well. Our main concern is not really just the price aspect. Our main concern is more the production aspect. We require each day roughly about, they say about 4 billion SCF of gas production per day to meet our local needs. I think it's a bit more than that. I would put it at about 4.2 billion SCF per day. We are producing about 2.7 to 2.8 billion SCF per day, which is substantially lower. We need gas for the 3 trains and Atlantic LNG trains. We need gas for the downstreamers in Point Lisas, and we need gas for our electricity supply. When you consider all of this, we are essentially functioning, and we've been functioning for a while, in a deficit in terms of our gas production. So I think it's not just about the price factor, it's more about the production factor. The production factor in terms of our local needs, and
which of course segues into the discussion on that, on the borderline gas that we have with Venezuela and the concession.
And that in itself is not, whenever it does materialize, and I hope it is going to materialize sooner rather than later. Pragmatically speaking, we're probably not going to see that gas until the next 3 to 4 years, but it's still not going to be enough to take us where we would like to be. You're looking at about 350 million SCF per day, as the reports would have indicated, and that in itself is not that high if you think about it, especially given where we are right now.
So is it a solvable problem at all in terms of our ability to get the shortfall? Because unless we have some massive discovery, we kind of screwed in that regard.
Yeah. So the bulk of our gas tends to lie in the Columbus Basin, and and Deepwater Reserve. Now we remember our wells are, most of them are mature wells. Mature wells being that we may not be able to extract as much gas as before, if any at all. However, that does not preclude us that does not preclude additional exploration activities to come across new reserves in the Columbus Basin. That is always a possibility. The problem is that, and not just in TNT, internationally, is that the capital expenditure that goes into exploration activities, they have not picked up to a level higher than where it was in 2019, in the immediate pre-pandemic era. And one would think that this is quite surprising, given that, well, prices have been recently high. I mean, they're not high at this point in time. When you look at prices like the Henry Hub, but recently, up to the end of last year, early this year, they were quite high. So why have energy companies not ramped up the scale of their exploration and production of their exploration activities? And the reason for that is the volatility that they've seen in prices from 2016 till now. And now what we're also seeing is that a lot of the hardcore players in hydrocarbons, like the BPs, the Chevrons, etc., they are making strides into looking at renewable energy. And I think that is where we need to be. We can't put our eggs like other countries, and this advice is globally. You can't put your eggs in just one basket and think, okay, hydrocarbons are going to run out, we need to go into renewables. It has to be a balance of both. We are a gas-based economy, and gas is the best hydrocarbon to be utilizing, because not just of the spin-off products that you get from things like methanol, etc., but also because it has out of the other fossil fuels a lower level, the lowest level, if I'm not mistaken, of carbon emissions for the atmosphere. So in utilizing gas and making that your specialization at this point in time is not a bad idea. But globally, the demand for gas is dwindling, and we are likely to see it being much lower than where we are right now. That demand is going to be much lower when we get to the year 2030, according to the international analysts. But you can't escape from gas altogether, because if you were to look at only strictly renewables, take what happened in Brazil last year, for example. Because of drought conditions in Brazil, when you had the electricity supply, when they utilize a lot of, in certain parts, they utilize a lot of hydropower for electricity. But because of drought conditions, the electricity supply would have been interrupted. Because of certain other weather conditions as well, when there were cloudy conditions, for example, or even the drought conditions, that affected the power to the grid. However, if there were a supply of gas to compensate for those weather conditions, then you would continue to have a healthy electricity supply. So there needs to be a balance of the gas, of the hydrocarbons, and the renewables, so that because even though renewables, we could say that it is unlimited in supply, but hydrocarbons are limited in supply. Renewables are not always reliable. That's the problem. So having that balance between the hydrocarbons and the renewables, I think, is where the future needs to be, not eliminating the hydrocarbons altogether. With respect to TNT, for quite some time now, we needed to have accelerated our ability to convince the energy companies to accelerate their levels of exploration activities in TNT. We're seeing what's going on in Guyana. We know what's about to happen in Suriname, where Suriname is likely to be in the next 10 years, some in a position similar to Guyana as well. So question is, what are we in turn doing about it? We have to, given that we know, yes, our reserves are likely to be at a maturing stage, our wells are in a maturing stage. That again does not preclude us from finding new reserves, new healthy reserves of natural gas. But that involves significant capital expenditure, since we're talking about deep water exploration, which is extremely expensive.
Yeah. Are you hopeful about it?
Oh, certainly. I am hopeful about it, but I tend to I like to focus more on the non-energy aspect, because that, I think, is where we need to start focusing more of our attention on. I mean, the Ministry of Trade, they've done quite a lot. I mean, you have to give Jackie Jacket. The Ministry of Trade, they try to provide a lot of tax breaks, a lot of grants, etc., to the SMEs. But I think a lot more needs to be done in making the business environment healthier in Trinidad and Tobago, more resilient in Trinidad and Tobago. We're seeing the manufacturing sector progress, yes, but there are other sectors that are in their infant stage that need to be developed, need a lot of support from the government, support that unfortunately they are not getting. It seems for quite some time now, our attention is more primarily geared towards finding new ways, or finding ways to raise revenues for the state that are what you call pro-cyclical, where in times of less, you tax more. So you're making it harder for the business community and the consumer at large, all for the sake of making the numbers look good. And that really, we need to start looking at avoiding that at this point in time. More investments need to be made into the economy, and the state naturally is the catalyst for that.
Yeah. But that's where we're going to have to leave it this morning, Dr. Arjun.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for,
thank you
this morning and having the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All the best. Be safe.
You too. Enjoy the rest of
Thank
the
you.
day.
Yes, you too as well. All right. Of course, that was Dr. Valmiki